Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name's Chris Warden, and I am joined by a panel here. This is awesome. This is Javelina Jundred. We are here to talk about the race, to talk about our contenders for the golden tickets who are trying to punch their ticket to Western States. Joining me here is Mael Buckhausen, Dan Ryan, Corinne Shalvoy, and Andy Jones-Wilkins. We're going to jump right into things. We know that there's a lot going on this weekend. The buzz here is incredible, and we don't want to keep anybody from that. So we're going to get right into brass tacks. So those of you who have run this race before, AJW, Corinne, what are your thoughts on the course here? It's definitely a runner's course. It's definitely made for people who can throw down some flat, fast miles.
Yes, it is, and I think what you've got to do is divide it into four parts. Leaving here, you've got a little level, rolling up and down, slightly technical, then a pretty decent climb up on the far side, the south side of the park, then through the rollers and the washes on the west side of the park, and then the screaming buttery downhill back here that trashes people's quads if they're not smart. So 4 sections, pretty straightforward. Do it 5 times, you're done. Golden ticket.
Easy peasy, right? What are your thoughts of the course, Corinne? You've run this race before.
Yeah, I've run the 100K. I have crewed the 100-miler and paced. But, yeah, the 100K, yeah, it's a fast course. I mean, no doubt. I think that it's just, you got to just like any other long-distance race, you got to take care of yourself early. You can't get too ahead of yourself. I do think you want to optimize when it is cooler. And then you want to back off if you're getting a little warm. And the last thing you want to do is overheat and have to sit in a chair for a number of minutes. So stay cool, stay wet. As we learned from Andy Glaze, do not stay too wet. As if you are too wet, you got to remember to re-lube, or else you're going to have another issue. So what was his? I think it was stay. What did he say?
There was a lot of wet, a lot of lube advice.
I think it was smile and lube, like that.
Smile. No, eat, drink, and lube.
Eat, drink, and lube. Eat, drink, and lube. That's all you got to do.
And he's always smiling as well.
Absolutely. So. But yeah, it's a fast course. Have fun. Soak in the energy when you get through the aid stations. And don't get too caught up if you're trying to be competitive. Just don't get too caught up in those early miles. It's a long day.
Mael, Dan, obviously you two have not run this race before, but you've gotten a chance to at least see what the surface is like, and it's pretty comparative to what is out there in the course. Do you have any thoughts on what you've seen as far as the runners as far as the field that you've seen, and what you expect from these runners? Are we going to see some fast times with the heat, or maybe some people might encounter difficulties?
I think if people are local, that they're going to have better luck with the weather. Just because living in Phoenix, I live in a high desert area, and I came down here for the day, and I'm already sweating through all my clothing. It's pretty terrible, the heat. So if you're not used to this direct sunlight, I think that kind of dampens the people from the East Coast. They're used to running in trees and not on this type of terrain. So I think if they're coming from out east, they're going to have a little bit of issue with the terrain and the direct sunlight.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I love a race like this because it's so different to, say, a mountainous 100-miler. You've got to be onto your race strategy, but for different reasons, right? Like heat control, body temperature management, hydration, as opposed to other things like figuring out how you're going to do this climb and this descent, or when you're going to push here or push there. It's this constant 12 hours, 13 hours of management from the front guy, and then, the same for the front female. It's almost like a cross-country race in that you've just got to be on the whole time, because as soon as you drop off on your pace or your strategy or your fueling, that's going to just catch up, and it's going to really do you a cropper. So yeah, really interesting to see. And then you've got this awesome other situation where can you just go out there and run in road shoes? Do you want to get the fastest road shoes and just give that a crack? Or you're going to go out and stick to your trail running shoes? And so there's this real cool mix of elements that people need to be aware of and be right onto if you want to be at the front end of this race. And I think us as people of the fans of the sport sitting back and watching that unfold just makes it a really exciting day, along with just the hype and the attitude that's out here and being the fun event that Javelina Jundred is. It's what a mixing pot of fucking good times ahead,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that kind of reminded me that I think that historically we've seen the name of the game at this race to be successful is consistency. Not too crazy like variations, but people that have been successful here, Dakota, Devin, it's like consistency. And so like think about that all day long, as consistent as you can on each loop, I think is going to pay off.
Yeah, I think that's true too. I think that part of that consistency involves like not running outside of yourself, like not getting ahead of yourself. Like if you find yourself maybe ahead of where you expected to be after loop 1 or 2, you could end up in trouble in the later half of this race, because those first 2 laps are going to cook people. And unfortunately, one of the things about this race that's so amazing is the fact that it has an astronomically high DNF rate for a race that's really not all that technical. I mean, in some years, we're talking 55, 60% finish rates for a race that only has like 9,000 feet of climb overall over 100 miles. It's not technical. It's not, like you said, people race it in flats. But we do tend to see in some years that that the finish rate is simply lower because people are not able to mitigate the heat, and their strategies kind of fall apart early. Speaking of over the years, somebody who has been here in years past, obviously AJW, you ran this race in 2007, finishing second, I believe, that year. And then you're...
Thanks, Chris.
Just needed to remind you. Keep him in check a little bit. But then last year was your first time here in 15 years. Describe how different it is over the course of those 2 years.
Was it second though? Was it
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's awesome though, man.
First loser.
I appreciate
First
that.
loser.
Effort.
There were only like 4 people in the race. The first thing I'll say is the essence of the event hasn't changed that much. What Linda and Jerry envisioned just up the road at the Pemberton Trail parking lot for 100 people in October of 2006 still exists. It's bigger now. It was a party back then. There were costumes and crazy awards and everything else, but it was still the vibe of let's just all go out in the desert, run 100 miles, have a good time, and then sit around talking about it for a couple of days is still here. Now, the size, the magnitude, the way in which this sort of setup is at Javelina headquarters really mirrors the growth of the sport. And I think it mirrors it appropriately, where there's still, in each of these 250 tents, right now, there's people telling stories, talking, eating food, being nervous about what's going to happen tomorrow. Are they well prepared? Should they wear long sleeves at the beginning? All the same stuff we've been doing in this sport for 25 years is happening out there right now. That part hasn't changed, and I love that about Javelina.
I have to agree with you there. I've been coming out here. This is my 10th year being a part of this race, and it has grown, but at the same time, just as much as my legs are tired after walking around here all weekend, my arms are just as tired from all the high fives and the hugs because of that community feeling here. Corinne, you've been coming here for a few years now, so can you speak to like how it changed even in maybe that time, like in the 4 or 5 years that you've been a part of this race? Or
Sure. So the first year I came actually was COVID, 2020.
Okay.
So before everything got real, in March of that year, I ran the Black Canyon race, and then it was COVID. And then in October, you guys still held the race, October 2020.
It was a very muted.
It was
year,
very
though.
muted. It was so quiet. It was actually unique in that we had stage starts, so like every 30 seconds. And it made for interesting dynamic, at least in my race. I was in the first wave that went out, and third lap, I was passed by a woman, and I assumed she was in the 100-miler. And I was like, man, she's rolling. Turns out it was Lisa Roberts, who started for some reason the second wave. I had no idea I was racing her. So it made for a unique racing experience, but we still made it happen. I mean, there were still costumes. Jubilee was wearing masks with all of her costumes. And then, every year it's just gotten bigger and bigger. And then because it's become a golden ticket race, it's just like that next level. So the competition, and it's become certainly like a who's who of ultra running of the year.
Absolutely. Of course, Dan and Mael, I believe this is the first Javelina 100 for both of you, but you're no stranger to big races. Obviously, you've been at Hard Rock, Run Rabbit Run, events of that stature. What's your first impression of what you've seen out here just on Expo Day?
I was absolutely shocked by the line that stretched all the way around just for the check-in. I mean, that was incredible, seeing that many people here for the event. Everybody's excited. People talking about their costumes. Like, I believe we saw some in Forrest Gump costume earlier with his box of chocolates, which was really fun. So it's just a completely indifferent environment than Hard Rock or Run Rabbit Run. It really is. It just seems like it's going to be an absolute party even from the start of the expo on day one.
Niall, have you ever seen anything like this?
You know, to be honest, I'm a little bit unsure what's going to unfold here. I've heard, like, Burning Man has been mentioned a number of times, Javelina Jundred, and everyone's like, just wait. And so, I mean, it just seems like the foundations are getting laid, and I'm just really looking forward to it. The energy is ripe right now. It just seems like there's good people around. It seems like no one's leaving anything to imagination here. It's just going to be an absolute stumper.
People leaving things to imagination. You haven't been here when Bob Hearn has been here. There's nothing left of the imagination when that man's on the course.
So we were both completely surprised walking down the main row of all just the tents and the stations that people are going to have for the crowd. I mean, we saw somebody with a full toolbox there. Just like, wow, these people are excited to spend all day under their awning tents.
Oh yeah, the crew zone here is one of the things that's amazing about it. Like, for those that are not familiar, the crewing area is the entirety of Javelina headquarters, which means 10 by 10 pop-ups line the course 5 rows deep. There's probably 250 to 300 of them out here, in addition to 2 very large crewing areas that are communal that anybody can use. So these crew zones are basically, some runners leverage them as their place to stop and get things set up, but a lot of times runners are not really needing too much. So it ends up basically being a situation where the crews can have their own little base of operations where they hang out and stay in the shade and maybe throw a couple back. All they got to do is stay upright to take care of their runner 5 minutes every 3 or 4 hours. Easy peasy. That's all it takes.
I think as well, I've watched this race from afar a lot of times, and I think particularly this year, being able to tap into the live stream of this event, if people do watch it, just look for the level of detail in it. It is unreal when you walk up the road here, just like the level of detail that Jubilee and the team here have put into so many things. Like, there's a skeleton like the size of the start and finish
2 of
arch.
them.
Like,
There's
it's
2,
giant. I don't
2
even
9-foot, 10-foot high skeletons. Yeah,
it's just
absolutely
like,
amazing.
it's nuts. Like, so it's I'm really excited, but also I'm excited for other people that can't be here to check it out and just feel the energy through the screen, like, as much as you can, and then make sure you book a ticket next time.
If for nothing else, tune in for the costumes. I
Yeah.
mean, even if you don't like running, there's some epic costumes that come out at this race.
Says the self-proclaimed Halloween nerd. We're in for a treat with Corinne tomorrow.
Not my costumes. Other people's costumes.
Your Joker costume a couple years ago was awesome. I loved that thing.
Well, one of my favorite pictures is with Catcher Corbett, and she was dressed as the Purge, and I'm the Joker, and her costume is...
That was a terrifying costume.
Oh, it was amazing. And she ran the entire race with these masks on. I'm going, you should get an award just for running the race with the mask over your face.
Viewers, be warned. Corinne has a bag out here. It's her costume closet, and it's enormous.
It's going to be
fair warning.
Second only to Jubilee in terms of costume changes this weekend,
indeed.
probably. I mean, Jubilee, for those who aren't familiar, Jubilee goes through roughly 25 to 30 costume changes over the course of the weekend. So you'll see her in one moment in like a ringmaster costume. Another moment you'll see her in a big furry Bigfoot costume. And another minute you'll see her wearing a Will Ferrell semi-pro costume. Like, she's got them all, and they're basically, she has a rack of them like in set up like right next to the start finish line, and so she's basically constantly changing costumes. So one of the things that's amazing is just seeing her energy level and keeping her wardrobe fresh. Oh, look, you were about to say something, Dan.
Nope. No, that's incredible. I mean, so many costume changes. How many costumes did you bring?
Well, I'm only on the air 4 times, so 4. The pacing is, I don't know. If anyone's out there and they have tennis earrings, like tennis ball earrings, I need them. So there's one
there
costume
you go, tennis ball earrings.
Will be incomplete if
Corinne
I don't.
wants them.
And one thing that is cool about this race, I've been out here 10 times, and you've been out here in the past, and you've been out here for the last several years. When you're running it, it's cool. But if you're not running it, you want to be a part of it once you've been out here one time. You want to be pacing it. You want to be crewing it. You want to be volunteering. You want to just sit back with a 12-pack and a chair and a shaded area and watch the chaos unfold. That's one of the cool things about this race, is that being a spectator to it once, or being an active competitor once, brings you back. And maybe you never want to run that long again, or maybe you never want to run 100 miles in the desert again, or 100K in the desert, but you want to be back at this race to be a part of it. And I hope that you two, being here for the first time, get that vibe by the time your weekend is all said and done. We've talked enough about the race as a whole. Let's get down to business, because we all have a lot going on. I know that some of us have a baseball game that we're trying to watch here. Andy Jones-Wilkins. So let's get right to our picks. On each side, on the men's and women's side, there are 2 golden tickets to be given away. Let's start with Mael. Who are your women's picks for the golden ticket?
Geez, I'm really, really not good at this picking thing.
So I have a chance of winning as far as the pregame show goes.
You do, absolutely. But I think, what I've seen from the start list is just is not like the most recognized names in this sport. And that's cool, because we're going to be able to see people come through and take those tickets. And I think that's exciting, because sometimes, if you see the same names and coming up and getting these tickets, it kind of perpetuates them as being the best. And then a lot of attention goes that way without really understanding how deep some of these fields can be in the sport as a whole. So I'm trying to avoid your question of actually picking someone.
Come up with
that's what I'm saying right here. But I think, it would be unreal if Riley was able to get second place last year and then come back and win it, and just see if they could do that. That would be rad. I would like to see that. And then for the dudes, I'd probably even say, I really just don't know who I want to win. To be fair, I want Dan Green to show up and have a good day. And Dan Green, no one would really know, but we interviewed him today. Yeah. And he's just a really, really nice dude, young guy. And
I got some very confident vibes, slightly like Walmsley early days-esque in his confidence level of dude, just I want to win the race. What kind of question is that? I'm gonna go out with the leaders. That's
there were a few young guns like
Yes.
that today, weren't there? Yeah. With some serious I'm gonna throw down and you're gonna see something vibes from people like that. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Dan and you mentioned Riley. So who else you got grabbing tickets?
Well,
you can't just pick one.
Well, I just think I've got to give my man Brett a shout out, Brett Hornig. I think, he's going to have a good day, and I need someone else in the female division there. Maybe the Nicole Monette lady. She looked like she was she's ready for it.
She's very fast.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's it.
AJW.
That's what we're going for.
Oh my gosh! Well, you remember last year, we watched with, in awe as Heather Jackson went off the gun. We're sitting there in the chat hearing from all these triathlon fans, because she's like Anton in triathlon. And they were like, this is so cool. What is this? This is an ultra. They run on trails and go through these tents. And Heather's been focused. Heather went to Western States. Had a disappointing DNF at Michigan Bluff, so my pick for the win is Heather Jackson. And then I really like Tara Dower. I really do. She was confident here on the couch. She ran great at Run Rabbit Run. She's an East Coaster with kind of a West Coast attitude. She's not afraid of anything. She's not intimidated by anything. So I think Heather and Tara. And then I'm going with the veterans on the men's side. I got String Bean, finally. Joe McConaughey, finally getting his golden ticket. He's 0 for 7 for golden tickets. 3rd, 4th, and 5th places at golden ticket races. I think this is the year he does it. And then Zach Bitter, after a couple of disappointing results. He's 37 years old. Still got a lot in the tank. I think wants one more crack at Western States. Really methodical in his training this year. Really sophisticated. So String Bean and Zach on the men.
All right. Corinne, what you got?
Okay, so ladies, I'm going Riley Brady for the win. I think they are very prepared. obviously know how to close. Did that incredibly well last year at this race. So number 1, Riley Brady. I think number 2 is going to be Heather Jackson. I think she's going to have learned a lot over the, she seems to just be taking it all in, learning what she needs to do differently, adjusting, and she's no stranger to endurance events and has the wheels, and I think this course suits her. So I think Heather will take second. So those are my 2 women, or individuals in the women's field. And then on the men's side, I think that kind of along the lines of veteran, but just somebody who has done very well at this race, who I think maybe wants it more than anybody and has nothing to lose. I think Ryan Montgomery is going to win. So I think Ryan is going to take first and be really trying for that record. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be close. That's just, I think it'll be close. I don't know if they'll get it or not, but I think it'll be close. So Ryan Montgomery, number 1, and also going with Zach Bitter for number 2. I think.
Here's the thing. Ryan already has his ticket punched.
Yeah.
So do you have the potential
his
third?
Jeez,
Yeah.
I got to refresh my memory. Fantasy Free Trail, third on the men's side. I think I either had Brett or, I want to say Matt Daniels. I think, I don't know. I think it's time for Matt to have a good one.
Well, that's the beauty of this race and this field is that it's so deep that really you're kind of dartboarding it at this point. So, Dan, what are your thoughts?
So on the women's side, the person who won last year, Heather Jackson, I'm picking her as well. She has the. Did she get the course record here last year?
No,
Okay,
she didn't
she
win
was-
last year, but
okay.
she did finish in the top 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm picking her as well. It seems like a great pick. And then second, I'm going with Sarah Beal. She's an Ohioan. She won JFK and set the course record at JFK. So I'm picking with my home state and going with Ohio there. And then on the men's side, sorry, I'm forgetting names. Ryan Montgomery was one of the people I saw on the list and thought that name stood out. And Stringbeat for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
like to
Chris,
see him
how
get
about
that
you?
one.
So on the women's side, I am going with some very familiar names. First place, Riley Brady. They did their homework last year, and it paid dividends. I think it pays dividends again. Riley was fantastic last year, and from speaking with them earlier, I have no doubts that it could be a return to Western States. And in second, and to be honest, I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if she won the whole thing, Nicole Monette. Nicole Monette ran a 14:02 100-miler last year. She is so fast. That is absolutely blistering. I believe it's the fastest of any woman in the field. And frankly, even though she is not known for having a lot of trail experience, this is not the most technical course, on the planet. And we've seen people who handle, flatter surfaces, faster surfaces, road very well, do well here. So I think that Nicole will do very well. On the men's side, I can't believe nobody has mentioned Jonathan Ray.
Mm-hmm.
John Ray ran
Yeah.
a 13:03 here last year, and as far as I'm concerned, I think that John is going to take it down this year. Came up just short and one of the closest finishes in history, simply because what Dakota did was unreal. In second, I've got Ryan Montgomery. I loved watching Ryan run here a couple of years ago. Did a great job. Seeing him at Western States, and I was one of the few people I knew that put him in my top 5. So, Ryan did a great job there. But of course, that ticket will pass down, and it's going to pass down to somebody who's no stranger to this race, as far as I'm concerned, and that's Zach Bitter. People have not heard a lot about Zach doing things at the 100-mile distance, but people forget he's still a younger guy. He's only 38 years old. It's not like he's, like his age, but but it has been a while since we've seen Zach in a high-profile race have that result, and I think that he's still got several years of those left in him. One more thing before we go, and this is everybody can answer it or nobody can answer it depending how they feel. One of the things we like to do during our previews is talk about somebody who we know in the field who has not gotten that shine, who maybe is either a friend or somebody who's followed, maybe somebody from the hometown, whoever it is that that inspires you or that you're excited to follow their race, whether it be somebody finishing in 16 hours or 29 and a half hours? Does anybody have anybody that comes to mind for them?
Well, Corinne and I interviewed a bunch of people this afternoon, and honestly, all of them blew me away. Like, I just couldn't believe, like, what they brought to the conversation and why they're here, what they're doing. You know, someone like Andrew Glaze, this is like his 1,500 miler this year. And he just had an attitude of positivity, and it was just great. So, like, and also, like we mentioned before, Dan Green, it's just a really nice dude. And even Ryan Miller. Like, Ryan Miller, incredible dude in terms of his speed and ability in this sport. He's been in West States, and he's got so much potential. Like, yeah, if he doesn't have the race that he wants, I just hope he has a good race, and he's just one of those other people. But I couldn't split it between all those people because there's so many legends out here. I'm just going to be cheering for all of them.
Well, I think it's great to give them their
great.
shine in any regard. I think that's wonderful. So, yeah, I mean, to not stop it, one is totally fine in that regard. It's not the golden ticket count. So, anybody else have somebody that...
I have a couple. So shout out to anyone in the free trail community who's running. I lead the Free Trail Femmes group, and I know that there's a couple of individuals out here racing from that community. One unique thing I'll mention is Jen and Matt Hoadley. So Jen Hoadley actually had a, I believe, femoral break earlier this year, and she's back here to run the 100 miler. So hoping she has a great day. Jen and Matt Hoadley is going to be. He's a race director. He just put on the Womp Romp. He's going to be running the 100K. So I'm looking forward to seeing them out here. And then I'll give a shout out to my rabbit teammate Jill, and I am going to butcher her last name.
Waida?
Waida.
Yes.
Is it Waida?
I think it's Waida.
Waida. Okay. Jill, you know who you are. I love you. And I hope you have
She'll definitely know when it's like something like that.
Yes, my rabbit teammate, I hope she has a great day, and really looking forward to seeing
She's very
her out
fast.
there. She is very fast.
Yes. Dan, AJW?
I've got a couple.
Yeah.
So I heard part of AJW's talk when he was over there talking to the crews, and he said, just get him out of the chair, get him out of the tent. So I think shouting it out to all the crews that are here to help their runners and, you know, hopefully stay upright while they're having a couple, what'd you call them?
Frothies?
There we go.
Oh, frothies.
Frothies.
Well, they're having a couple frothies. And then, you know, they just play a huge part of somebody's race. And then also a good friend of mine from Pittsburgh, Paulette Ferenc, is running the 100K. So I'm just going to give her a shout out there, and excited to see her running out there.
Awesome. AJW?
Well, I'm going to go with a good friend of mine, too, and I will say over the years he has had a fair bit of shine on him, but the shine is worn a little bit lately. He's 47 years old, hasn't finished a 100-miler since 2019, and if he plays his cards right and gets a finish here at Javelina, he'll be running Western States in June, and that's Hal Kerner, the owner and operator of Ashland Running Company and the aid station captain at Quarry Road Aid Station. I had him on my podcast a couple of months ago, and, you know, Hal's a Hard Rock winner, 2-time Western States winner, all-around incredible guy.
3-time winner here.
3-time winner here, you know, all under 14 hours. He's not going to win. I don't think he cares. He's here with his parents. I saw him a couple hours ago, but, yeah, I will be happy to see Hal cross that finish line, and even happier to see him toe the line one more time at Western States in June.
And he'll probably be the second finisher from Rogue Valley Runners store because, of course, Brent Hornig works for him there. My picks, I've got two since we're playing fast and loose with the rules. Normally we do one. But my first one is Susan Donnelly. We interviewed her earlier today. If you're not familiar with Susan, she's amazing. She is going for ultra finish number 145, or 100 miler finish 145. Second one in the last 7 days. She ran No Business 100 just last weekend. She's 60 years old and just unbelievable. I think that her finish rate in 100 milers is above 95%. I think she can probably count her DNFs on one hand. She hasn't finished in the top 10 here in many years, but she has a couple of those finishes to her credit. But it's just, and I have unbelievable admiration for how she just constantly gets it done year after year, race after race. One of the things, you know, the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and Susan Donnelly comes in before 30 hours. Yeah. That's just how it works. My other one is a local guy, and he's going to hate the fact that I shout him out. At least he's going to act like he hates it, and that's David Bliss. So for those that aren't familiar, David Bliss is going for his 10th finish here at Javelina. and he actually is the leader of a local group of runners, the Arizona Trailleggers. Organizes a Sunday run every week here today, or this weekend notwithstanding. But Dave is going for his 10th finish, and he's also, I believe, the only runner here this year who ran the inaugural Javelina 100 back in 2003. So he's been a part of this community, a part of this race for over 2 decades now. This is the 21st year of the Javelina 100, and Dave keeps coming back. He's actually had a couple of fairly rough years the last couple of years, and he's going after that 10th finish once again, and I can't wait to see him get it. He's a very congenial person, and I'm rooting for him all the way. And you'll know who he is because he'll be wearing a very, very long hairband wig that'll go like down to his butt, and it's like long and blonde, and he'll also be wearing a face mask as well. I don't know what what he's going for there, but it's just an easy way to recognize him. So. Well, I think
I hope he bought a new one and he hasn't been using the same one for 20 years.
No, I'm pretty sure it's the same one.
Jesus.
I hope he washes it, but you never know. I mean, runners are kind of funny that way. Because nobody here washes their
The word you were
hydration
looking
packs,
for
right?
was gross.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I washed my hydration pack.
I wash my hydration pack.
On that note, let's wrap things up here. I know some of us have a World Series game to pay attention to. Other people are packing up their stuff for tonight and going to be out here in the morning. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning at 5:30 Arizona time. Sounds like as good of a time as any to me. The race starts at 6 in the 100 miler, 7 a.m. in the 100K. You'll want to tune in because we're going to be covering wall-to-wall 30 hours. Thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow.